Alright, I switched gears. I wanted to do an actual video answer sheet because I think just putting the answers down really wasn't going to be as helpful. It wasn't until 8th period where I kind of got in the groove of explaining this that many students got it right away, so I didn't want them to be at an advantage than my other 3 classes. So here's what you're going to do. On the test, you're going to have to look at a pedigree and kind of identify the 4 majors: autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, sex-linked recessive, sex-linked dominant. And from there, this is the easiest way to kind of go about it. First, you look for, is it recessive or dominant, before even thinking about autosomal or sex-linked. Whenever you're trying to do this, my suggestion is to always try and find 2 parents that are of the same combination that has an opposite child. In this case, the child always has to be the recessive phenotype, because you can never have 2 parents that are recessive have an opposite dominant child. So here, on pedigree letter A, I enlarged it. So if you already printed it out or looked at it, that's what you should be doing. Letter A. 2 parents, unshaded, have shaded children. That means the shaded have to be the recessive. This has to be the unshaded as dominant. And for all of these, you can do the same thing. Over here, 2 parents, shaded in, they have children unshaded. So the unshaded has to be the recessive. So you can say this has to be dominant. You can do this for all of them that give you that opportunity. Here, in G, 2 parents unshaded, they have a child that's shaded. This must be the recessive trait. They have to be the dominant. Here, 2 unshaded have a shaded child. The unshaded have to be dominant. The child has to be recessive. So you can start ruling these things out immediately, looking for 2 parents of the same that have an opposite child. In some cases, you don't have that luxury. You still have that luxury because you have 2 parents of shaded. That means these are the recessives. So that's the first thing you should be able to do, is go back and identify. If I go back to A, I can then say that these children have to have a recessive trait. I can rule out dominance, both sex-linked and autosomal. From there, since these have to be recessive, I'm then going to say that I'm going to start ruling out sex-linked. That's the easier one to rule out. So when I told you today, sex-linked recessive, you look for affected females. The rule is every affected female must then have an affected father. In this case, it doesn't work, so this can no longer be sex-linked recessive. So we've ruled out dominant, and now we've ruled out sex-linked recessive. It has to be autosomal recessive. So that's the answer to letter A. For letter B, we have ruled out that this cannot be recessive because the children have to be recessive, so this is dominant. Then you go right to sex-linked. Sex-linked dominant, if we're going to try and rule that version out of the 2 dominants left, affected males have to have affected daughters. That defies that rule, so therefore this cannot be sex-linked dominant. So the answer to this one is it can't be either of the recessives because these are the recessives, and it can't be sex-linked dominant because he would have to have an affected daughter. So this must be autosomal dominant. So you can rule 3 of them out. I believe I changed a few of these around on the worksheet. C is not one of them. I'm trying to keep track of this. So we've ruled out that here we have 2 parents shaded, unaffected child. The unaffected child has to be the recessive. So these have to be dominant. So let's see if we can rule out a sex-linked dominant. The affected males have to have affected females. Affected male has to have affected females. So that doesn't rule any of them out. So for this one, actually, the answer could be autosomal dominant or sex-linked dominant. Usually, if it can be sex-linked dominant, I would always put that as my one answer. That's just the rule of thumb. If you were given an A, B, C, D answer, which one is this? I would go with sex-linked because it has the ability to be sex-linked. Letter D. So letter D over here. I did change on your answer. I actually put this as shaded in, so you can do that as well. If this is shaded in, this means that 2 unshaded parents have this child has to be recessive. So the unshaded is dominant. Let's figure out from these, can we rule out which recessive is it or is it not? For sex-linked recessive people, you look for the affected females. Affected females have to have affected fathers. In this case, it defies that, so this is not sex-linked recessive. This must be autosomal recessive. So keep doing that. Is it dominant or recessive? And then start ruling out if you can eliminate the sex-linked version of the one that remains. All right, that's the best way to do it. And now with that little introduction, I will just put the answers down and see if you can match that. I'm not going to go through every one of these. I want you to practice some on your own to make sure that you can have that ability to do that for the test. Okay, hopefully those 4 examples made a little bit more sense for you and you're ready for tomorrow. All right, see you then.